Hello everybody, this is Masood Ahmed, your host at Allah's Narrative. Welcome to today's podcast. Whether Enoch be a legend from the Mesopotamian mythology or a candid prophet chosen by the divine figure, the argument is lost in the sands of the desert, because the atheists do not believe in God. They do not trust the scripture. So God must come before Enoch. Who is God? The Quran gives you a few statements. It says He is the first, the everlasting. This reminds us of the causal argument, Ibn Sina's Kalam cosmological argument. But the Quran gives more. It says He is the evident, the discernible yet invisible. For human beings, for centuries, because of application of their forebrain into reasoning of concepts, to think about episteme, to reason out the ontological concepts, the application of forebrain has been rigorous, and as such, the opportunity for it to connect with the brainstem has been minimal. As one may understand, the brainstem more so functions without taking permissions from the individual. It's on its own. It's the subconscious. It knows what needs to get done. So the forebrain of a human has been engaged in observation and reasoning of the natural world that it encounters. And as such, unfortunately, Kalam cosmological argument has been stuck with human beings for a long, long time. Despite their intelligence and impartiality, we need to think why atheists have not embraced Kalam cosmological argument. It's a question worth considering. However, if you were to reason the existence of God through observation of the natural world, you would go on to describe God as the creator, the artist of methods. This is how the Quran describes him. The originator with an ingenious upshot. He brings into existence things that don't exist. Something that we conceptualize as humans. Our brain power is so enormous that we visualize and develop imagery within our brains of things that were remotely even known to our forefathers. God, the designer, is the parametric modeler as comes in the Quran. To him are the most beautiful names. Well, these attributes or ascriptions that you might relate to God are realized from the reasoning impetus of the human brain. The forebrain that engages with the natural world comes up with reasoning necessary to deduce logic. As such, Ibn Sina's argument is based on the overwhelming empirical evidence that we are surrounded with, and reason by using logic to infer the origins of nature. So we see everything in nature begins, and there is a cause. This is a posteriori observation of the natural world. And when we deduce the incumbency of a non-contingent cause, which is basically Ibn Sina's Kalam cosmological argument, we are relying on our logical reasoning and the empirical evidence that's around us to cement the concept of causation, the primordial cause, who's non-contingent in nature. But I've got reservations against Ibn Sina's Kalam cosmological argument. My reasoning is, because of our logical reasoning to deduce, based on observation, that there is a cause for the causation, I consequently conclude that the fundamental requirement for the ontology, or of an ontology, for a non-contingent cause to exist, cannot be solely derived, cannot be solely justified by rational thinking alone. It cannot be. Because this is a posteriori observation. We see things made in nature, and there is a cause underpinning its origins. So deriving the equation of a non-contingent primordial cause, the first cause, is an easy done job. Rather, the difficult bit of the information that the Quran supplies us is that God is the evident, the discernible, yet invisible. This nature of God is beyond the question of who God is. We could answer who God is as we have just answered, to be the creator, the artist of methods, the originator, the ingenious upshot, the designer, a parametric modeler. But how would you describe God as the evident, as the discernible yet invisible? Well, that's the difficult bit, which is innate to human nature. Now, because the forebrain functions on its own and has minimal connections to do with the brain stem, human beings have been pretty non-delving within to realize an answer to engage atheists with. Atheists, as I said, they're honest people, truly looking and seeking the truth. You got to give them the benefit of the doubt. You got to be positive at times. If you have a positive frame of mind to engage with atheists, you would realize sometimes they are legit. They have genuine feelings of facing the disconnect with God. So if you were to give them the benefit of the doubt and think that they are impartial, they are not biased, or they're free from prejudice and they're truly seeking the answers about God, then it's necessary to reflect on the later part of the information given in the Quran, which is God is evident, discernible yet invisible. So the engagement one would make with the atheists is not on who God is. Instead, it would be the engagement on how God manifests to human beings. What is the manifestation of God in relation to human being? How does God relate himself to human beings? This is the question that we need to be talking about to the atheists. This question will take you beyond the sciences that we are presently talking about, debating with each other to derive conclusions on God. And each side hangs on dearly to their own theses. People who believe in creationism, people who believe in random origins of the universe. Although I'm of the opinion that if bias and prejudice, not so much prejudice but bias, is dropped, and if atheists pay their good ears, then there is evidence in the Quran which is totally science-based, which I've covered in my books. In my first two books, Ancient Astronomy and Creation of Earth and Origins of Life, I've tackled this subject of creation and origins of life in my first two books. And if atheists were to read that book, I'm sure they would consider evidence given in those books. But nonetheless, it is a challenge to make them read the books because they are not convinced about God to begin with, and they have lived in that bias for a long time. So what happens is those beliefs get solidified in their forebrain, and then it becomes difficult for them to persuade them to read any material coming from the theist side. So as such, we have to go a step further to promote the discussion to understanding, to comprehending who God is by the argument how God manifests to human beings. And why is this paramount? There is a New Scientist article by Justin L. Barrett, and he concludes in his article, after his science experiment, that children are born believers, not of Christianity or Islam or Judaism or any other religion, but what he calls is they are born believers of natural religion based on instincts. So he argues and concludes they have strong natural tendencies toward religion, but they are not belonging to any particular belief, but they belong to the concept of an agency. And this is why this question, this proposition, is so paramount, so important, that you don't talk to atheists on who God is. Rather, God comes first, and how He manifests Himself to us. This is where the discussion needs to be. And look out for my future video where I will elucidate from the statements of the Quran as to what this manifestation of God to human has been. Don't forget to watch my other videos, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye.